our next speaker, she is a graduate of Lakeview Academy and Agnes Scott College. She was first elected to the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors while working on her law degree in 2000, and she was elected again to the Flowery Branch City Council in 2010. Today she is coming here as the Libertarian candidate for the U.S. Senate. Please welcome Amanda Swafford.
Well, hello there. How is everyone today? Gosh, it feels so good to be on this side of the stage. I remember when I was over there last year serving everyone sweet tea and how wonderful that was. But the grass was a little bit taller. It's remarkable to be over here and listening to Austin Paul. He's one of my favorite speakers. I love coming every year to hear Austin talk about his ideas and hear everyone speak about everything. You know, today is a beautiful day. It's April 12th. Today is Tax Freedom Day. Yes, in Georgia it is Tax Freedom Day. That is a wonderful day. Of course, if you think about it, if we add the federal debt to that, it's actually May 6th, according to the Tax Foundation. I don't know how exciting we can get about that, but, you know, if you combine everything we spend on our housing, our clothing, and our food, we still spend more on taxes. That's not good. But I don't know, ladies, if you put our shoe budget in there, we may actually spend more on the clothes. But I don't know, taxes. We do spend a lot on taxes and time. Nationally, we spend about 6 billion hours preparing our taxes. 6 billion hours it takes to spend on taxes. And I know I just filed my taxes about 2 weeks ago on a Saturday like this. And the time it takes to go on websites and to pull off all the forms, because they don't send you the forms on mail anymore. You have to go on websites, and some of these websites you don't even go to for a year. So you've got to remember the passwords and pull all that stuff down. And you know, over 90% of us require some kind of help to do our taxes. It's just gotten so complicated, whether we have to rely on software or we have to hire somebody to do our taxes for us. It's so complicated. And yet we're told time and time again that we're going to have reform, that we're going to be given relief, that they're going to help us so that we don't have to spend so long on taxes. We're keep being told this. And I've heard this for a long time. I've been in politics, involved in politics in one form or fashion for 30 years. And a lot of you are looking at me like out there and seeing how young I am and thinking, well, was she involved in politics when she was 8? Well, yes, matter of fact, I was. I wrote my first letter to an elected official when I was 8 years old back in 1984. I actually wrote a letter to Ronald Reagan and got a response back. I followed the presidential campaign of Ronald Reagan. I loved his ideas that he talked about: liberty, less government, less taxation, freedom, pure and simple ideas that really seemed to resonate. And even back then, to a young, growing American, it was full of optimism, and it gave me pride to live in this country and to continue fighting for the aims we believe in. And as I grew up and became more involved and followed candidates and got involved, went out to California, got elected while I was in law school to countywide position out there, came back and got involved with the Flowery Branch City Council, got elected there, got involved with the Fair Tax Organization. We led a trip. I was responsible for leading a trip on a train up to Washington, D.C., where we rallied at the IRS building and met with congressional officials like Hank Johnson and Austin Scott to try to encourage them to adopt the fair tax and sign on as co-sponsors. Those kind of things. It seems like we've just been fighting for so long, time and time again. And tax reform just never seems to go anywhere. Never seems to get any better for us. We've had ideas in tax reform, such as the idea that you should be able to file your taxes on the back of a postcard. You should be able to enjoy a flat rate, like 17% taxes, or the fair tax, which we've heard a lot about today, and we'll hear about some later. And my campaign for United States Senate will be central to the idea of the fair tax. And I have a lot of ideas, particularly how the fair tax may restructure its organization to gain some additional traction, to gain some more sponsors in Congress. And I encourage you to look into those as we go throughout the campaign this fall. But the two-party system, it just seems like we never seem to get anywhere. And it reminds me back to when I was on the playground back in 1984. Our teachers used to gather us together, and they would tell us about times in a far, far away land, back in a make-believe land, where there were unicorns, and there were rainbows and leprechauns, and things didn't cost anything. You had pots of gold and money. If you needed money, you just found money at the end of a rainbow. And there were lots of no guiding principles, nothing to really hold your beliefs or anything that you needed to believe in. And it just seems to me, doesn't it to you, that Congress is kind of like a make-believe land. It seems like that's kind of the land that they live in. There they have unlimited funds. They just print their own money if they run out of money. If they need to balance a budget, they propose it, and it takes 10 years to balance the budget. I don't know about you, but if it was me and Visa and MasterCard needed money, they're not going to wait 10 years. That's just kind of how it goes. And the two-party system in America. I think the two-party system in America is really like a fantasy land too. They have failed. The two-party system in America has failed to understand the power and responsibility of the individual. But they surely understand the power and responsibility of the federal government. The two-party system is overpopulated with unicorns. It's a fantasy system. They keep going time and time again. And even when the major parties have been in power for so long, when they've had control of the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office, what have they been able to accomplish? The bills that they do push out, like the Affordable Care Act, where does that go? What does that get us? What do we really get for that after all this time? So what should we do about these make-believe fantasy lands? I propose to you that we should stop feeding the unicorns. That's the only way we're ever going to get anywhere in this country, is to stop feeding the unicorns. We've got to get better at understanding that the power and responsibility of the individual is where it lies. That's where our opportunities are. I'm already a little different, if you haven't figured that out, from our Senate candidates that you'll be hearing from today. I will not be on your ballot on May 20th. I am a libertarian running, and I will be on your ballot in November. I have already been nominated because the Libertarian Party of Georgia does not participate in taxpayer-funded primaries. We do not believe that taxpayers should be participating in the primary system for our candidates. Maybe we should, in a lot of ways, because we'd get a little more assistance and publicity from that, but we're a principal party, and we understand that we should not have taxpayers becoming involved in our primary system. So I've already been nominated. In fact, I'm only the second woman so far that's been nominated in Georgia for the United States Senate. In fact, the first woman that was ever nominated for Senate in Georgia was just disbarred 3 weeks ago by the Georgia Supreme Court. And that's kind of sad that in Georgia, we've only nominated 2 women so far for the United States Senate, whereas our southern neighbors have not only nominated, but have elected women to the United States Senate. The Libertarian Party of Georgia actually has a very rich history of nominating diverse candidates for statewide office. We nominated the first woman and the first African American to the governorship for statewide office. I'm not poised, certainly not poised. I'm not polished. I have a demanding full-time job while I'm campaigning. I'm making sacrifices to be out here on the weekend, especially a beautiful weekend like this. But I believe in the power and responsibility of an individual, one person that can make a difference. And my prayer for us today is that if we can just take one person that's not at this rally, or one person that doesn't understand how the power and responsibility of one person can change things, that by tomorrow, each one of us will find one person that can make that change in just a mind. Because that's all it will really take, is just changing one person at a time. We've got to get serious about electing a candidate that understands the power and responsibility of an individual and not the power and responsibility of the federal government. My name is Amanda Swafford, and I'm running for United States Senate. I'll be on the ballot in November, and we have these lanyards out that we have to stop the unicorns, stop feeding the unicorns. That's the only way we're going to get out of this fantasy land that we live in today. So I encourage you to check out my website at amandaswafford.net. And please give us some consideration coming up in November. Thank you so very much. Tax Freedom Day. Woo!
All right, thank you. Hall County's own Amanda Swafford. Give her another round of applause.